Okay, let's get started. Good morning, everyone. I welcome you all to this first session as a part of our event, Multiculture 2021. And I first of all want to thank all of you to be a part of this event. And let's make this event more interactive. I want you to participate more into this event and ask as many questions as possible, clarify your doubts, come back and participate more into it. There are going to be 8 different sessions as a part of this series, and this is only the first one. We are going to have a industry people participating in this, and then there are a lot of competitions and quizzes as a part of it. I think the communication has reached all of you, so you have been well aware of that. So the purpose is to make you feel involved and as much as included in the program before you are joining us. So given that there is a lot of there is a these courses are pretty unique and new to you, it's important for you to ask right questions and come out with getting these courses with a clear mind. And over these sessions, we are going to have a lot of interactive sessions going on. So primarily, we want to make sure that you be involved as much as possible. So let me quickly start with sharing the screen, and let me know if you are able to see it. So I'm sure you guys must be looking forward. You must be excited to be a part of this university, and I'm sure you would have had some kind of interactions already to make sure that you feel excited about this whole organization. Uh, I would recommend that you should visit the website and look at the course content for which you have signed up, so that you get more clarities. And then there are a bunch of webinars which are available to give you the right information. So as a part of this series, the first session which we are starting with is based on the computational business analytics course, and we are trying to give you a perspective. I'm trying to give you a perspective of the industry, the various industries in which analytics is heavily used. So the topic, as it says, demystifying analytics, which is more of an industry perspective. My quick introduction: I'm Dr. Mayank Mathur. I've been a part of this organization working on the computational business analytics area, and I'll be taking care of many of the courses around that area. So please feel free to ask me questions around that, and come back with your clarifications and questions. So these are the 3 undergrad programs for which you have signed up, at least one of them. And there are some there is as I said, like, there is a curriculum associated with each of them. So I would encourage you to have a deeper look at what you're going to work on, and what are your thoughts about it. So come back and ask questions. So this program helps you ask questions around that and clarify your doubts around it. So let's just give me a minute. So let's start with looking at a very big question about what do we mean by data. When we talk about analytics, we are dealing with data. So look at the amount of data which is spread across the world today, and what amount of data are we analyzing on a daily basis. Look at organizations like Walmart, 20 million transactions per day. AT&T is making 300 million calls per day. And there are credit card companies who are handling billions of transactions per day. So look at the amount of transactions which are happening around the globe. Then there is online document and network data related to your social media, Facebook and Twitter, and a lot of Wikipedia articles which are lying around. Then your behavioral data around your mobile phones, your e-commerce data, when you went and purchased something on an Amazon or a Flipkart, what amount of data is generated. So this gives you a feeler of what the amount of raw data which is lying there to be analyzed and used for decision making. How does an organization decide what are the next steps to be taken? And we as analysts are enabling that day in, day out for these organizations. We'll have a closer look going by industry by industry. Let's look at the e-commerce industry as the first target industry, which is most commonly used by us these days as we are doing day-to-day purchases using the e-commerce. So there is a huge data analytics presence in the e-commerce world today, which is helping these organizations go from one level to the other. So let's come back to our day-to-day use. Imagine you visited an e-commerce site this weekend and did some purchase. So you would have seen some patterns. The advertisements from the last few visits of your browsing, they appear on your screen every now and then. I'm sure most or all of you would have experienced that sometime or the other. And secondly, once you have purchased something, the offers on the next purchase items related to our previous purchase start appearing. So that's more like a personalization. These are the various aspects these organizations involve these days, looking at our transaction patterns, our browsing patterns, our website visiting patterns. If we are going to a website and trying to access something, that all that information is recorded, and that information is used by these companies, these organizations, to give you some offers back, to give you some information back. The advertisements which you see at the top, the offers which you see at the bottom, they are all a part of the data analytics, what e-commerce companies are using heavily to translate into it. So this is one example of it, where we are retargeting the markets on the websites. So you went to a website where you tried to browse something, and then the very next website, when you went to a yahoo.com, you would see the ad for that. It's pretty common. I'm sure all of us would have used that. So how does it happen? It happens in a very simple serial manner, where a visitor went to a website. You use that you access that website here, but you exit it. But that data is transmitted to the website owners, and that information is translated into an ad. And then whenever the visitor returns to the site, that ad is there, and then the visitor is actually provoked to return to that website again. So this whole exercise is something what data analytics enables you to do. And then there are many possibilities of segmentation. I'll not go deeper into what these terms mean, but you can have a look at on a day-to-day basis, the on-site behavior of a particular segment of people is very common across. The email behaviors are pretty common. The kind of information which we share, the information which we read through, is something which is common. So you could, based on email behavior, you could do a segmentation. And then of course, as I said, like the purchase behavior, when we are purchasing a few items on a particular e-commerce website, based on the purchase behavior, we are providing a segmentation in terms of offers, in terms of discounts, in terms of some advertisements related to that which are shown. So all this is something which is related to our data. And how does it happen? E-commerce companies are collecting this data, cleaning it up, identifying the patterns out of these. As I said, like if you're purchasing a particular type of fashion brand specifically, you would fall in a particular category, and accordingly those categories can be given a specific offers, etc. And then based on that, there is a foresight, which is more of a predictive analytics, which comes in picture. So this is something what e-commerce companies have been following as a pattern, and organizations are using these kind of techniques to make sure that they increase their productivity. But let's talk about us. Who's doing it for them? It's the analysts like you across the globe who are helping you out. And what are these companies like? Amazons, the Flipkarts, the Walmarts, the Targets, and even the local food providers like the food delivery providers like Zomato, Swiggy. These are the all the e-commerce organizations which are looking at people like us, you and me, to make sure that we provide them those insights and help them getting the right benefits. Similarly, education is another area or another industry which has a very heavy use of analytics these days. Analytics is big time helping these education sector to make sure that we are able to identify certain patterns in the way we are teaching. Like for example, I'm just taking an example here. Analytics can actually give you the information, the previous performance of students can give you the information that a particular student could have a poor CGPA, and that alert can go to the faculty, and faculty can take a necessary action indicating that the student will have to work harder. So given that there is going to be enough data available for this analysis, the feedbacks go to the faculty, and faculty can take more corrective actions on specific people or specific student to reach the desired mark. And teachers can know what topic a student is weak and implement specific study plans for those people. This is something which is applicable at a K-12 school level, at a +2 level, at a competitive level in terms of competitive exams which happen at a +2 level. It's happening at a college level. It is happening at a higher education level, and various organizations are involved in providing these kind of edutech solutions to many of these colleges and schools across the globe. How does it happen again? The flow is very simple. You build a student's profile. You predict the course GPA based on the previous performance. There are techniques which are available. Like one of the techniques is RBM technique, which is mentioned here. Then the student's knowledge in the course domain is also weighed against the previous, the predicted GPA. And then the inference and then the feedback goes back. The feedback can go back to the student or could go to the faculty, and faculty can take an offline action on that particular student or a set of students who fall in that category. So given that there is again the previous data or previous information or the patterns which are currently being seen in a student, these are all data points. This is the information what our tools which are there can help students and faculty to improve on certain qualities in terms of the education as such. So EdTech is heavily using these techniques. Dropout rates, and this is more prominent in some of the Western countries where the students are dropping out across the globe of schools and colleges because of various reasons. And there are predictive models which can actually categorize a set of people who are more likely to drop out or having higher risk of dropout. And this is again done by the data analysis. So if I know a set of people as a faculty, if I know a set of people who are more likely to drop out, I would actually create some counseling sessions, some specific courses for these people, and make them more enthusiastic about this particular course, so that I can translate that into more quality. I can improve the quality of students. I can improve the CGPA of students, things like that. And even if the dropout is for a reason which cannot be avoided, at least as an education institute, I'm aware of what are the reasons, and in future I can take necessary action to avoid those reasons in the future. Like this is some data point. I'll not go deeper into it, but let's say if we have run some kind of an survey on the previous data, we get to know that the various reasons for a dropout of a high school by gender, for a male student versus a female student, there are various different reasons which have come out. So looking at this information itself, I can create, I can derive a few action items, and that action items can be applied to a specific segment. Like, for example, if people are not able to uh, if somebody is not able to cope up with the grades, or is not able to keep up with the schoolwork, these kind of people can be targeted specifically for making sure that they are given some improvement path. But coming to this level of identifying what are the top 10 problems or top 5 problems requires a lot of analytics. And again, I come back to this question again and again: who's building it for them? The analysts like you across the globe. Look at some of these organizations again: Byju's, Vedantu, Simply Learn, Upgrad, Merit Nation. These are very data intensive organizations, and they keep on improving. Byju's is one of the largest unicorn in India today, and they have reached those levels based on these kind of analysis only. They know that there is more likely for students to burn out over a period when they are in a +2. So what are the various techniques I can apply as an organization to make sure that I catch those people and make sure that those people are still enthusiastic about a particular course which they are working on? Then there is this organization called PowerSchool. It's again a US based organization, which is primarily an edutech company. It provides you education solutions, but does a lot of data analytics based on the student data. And they are actually one of the largest uh, edutech company in North America region, at least. So given that the dropouts and the teacher attritions and all those issues are more prominent in that society, that particular society, PowerSchool provides a lot of such solutions to cope up with these kind of issues. And this is all possible because of the data analytics, which the strong data analytics which they have been using. The third segment which I wanted to take quickly is, I'm sure all of us have been hearing this term every now and then: fintech. It's primarily the technology around financial organizations. And especially we'll talk more about the data analytics, which is heavily used in fintech these days. I'm sure at some point or the other, you would have come across some of these data points. Like, for example, if we are accessing uh, a, a bank's performance, or leaving alone everything else, if we are looking at the stock performance of an organization, that's also related to fintech, because that's something which is a part of, and there is a lot of data analytics which is applied on top of it. So this is all part of the fintech, uh, uh, fintech as an industry, and data analytics applied on top of it. So look at these various steps which come across the data feed. The process will be very similar to any other industry, but the kind of data which will come in would differ from a sector to sector. So in a financial sector, the data collection will be from multiple bank sources. It will be from various partner merchants. Then the data analysis will involve a lot of integration and aggregation. You might have taken a few loans. You and your family would have been involved in a few loans, as well as you would have some assets. So the assets versus loans calculations, and that integration across your incomes, your family incomes, your overall status, etc., is something which comes as a part of the data analysis. And that's how we segment the groups. And based on those customer segmentations, various offers, various organization level information is provided. You might be looking for real estate investment, or your parents might be looking for a real estate investment. In those scenario, you would be a better, you would be segmented in that particular category, and according to your profile, your offers will differ. So that is all part of your data analytics. It does not it makes sense to target a wrong segment of people for a particular product. So all these fintech organizations help you do the right data analysis and bring it on table for you to consume. Then there are customer insights like social media integrations and all that, and then the offers are rolled out. And this is like these are all in the finance field. These are all the applications of the hardcore data sciences which are used, the real-time analytics, the consumer analytics, the fraud detection, security. I mean, it's our money which is there lying in the bank. So given that we would like to give me a minute. Yeah, we would like to definitely provide some fraud detection softwares. So all this falls as a part of the data science applications which are currently available in the financial sector. There's much more. In fact, this is much. This goes much deeper and much involved. Each of these activities are pretty involved these days. So many organizations are purely working on each of these boxes which we are seeing, and they are actually focusing only on one area at a given point of time. So when we are talking about financial sector, I think it can go as deep as an organization or as a macroeconomic situation of a country, or there are various factors related to that. So in the subsequent sessions which we are going to have, we are going to cover economics and finance in details. So you could ask the right questions there. So given that each of these boxes are primarily very data intensive, again, because we are talking about our information, our customer data, the real-time analytics data, the consumer analytics data, and all that. So primarily, heavy data analytics is involved in this whole process. And again, who's building it for you? For them, it's analysts like you across the globe. And many organizations in India, which you can see here, Paytm, MobiKwik, Razorpay, these are primarily the intermediaries and the wallets which you see. And I have not listed the banks here, but in general, the banks and intermediaries are heavily using these kind of softwares, these kind of data analytics softwares which are being built, and primarily help them optimizing their solutions, making sure that there are no frauds, there are no glitches as such, because we are talking about money here, which is most important aspect here. Okay, so I have covered 3 broad areas today. There are many more industries like healthcare. There is always a manufacturing domain. There is a technology domain where analytics is heavily used. But given that this should give you some idea about how analytics as a whole is primarily used in the industry, how the organizations use this whole information in the industry. There are so that should have given you some idea. Now coming back to our sorry, one second. Coming back to our what MUSOM is offering you, it's actually giving you the data analytics fundamentals, the basics, and the case study based teachings which you take back, the live industry examples and interactions which you would have as a part of your coursework, as a part of your all your assignments or tutorials. You would look at a lot of industry based examples. There will be a lot of people who will be visiting as a guest sessions which we are going to conduct, and over a period you will see a lot of industry involvement while you are involved in your coursework. So the learnings and teachings will be overlapping with the industry. We'll bring a lot of industry connects and industry overlapping scenarios in your teachings as much as possible. And I think the research orientation and on the data science and advanced areas of analytics is always going to be there. So I'm sure you would have had a look at your curriculums specifically, but just wanted to cover up this particular aspect in detail, where we are covering these kind of courses like microeconomics, macroeconomics, management principles. So these are initial courses are primarily orienting you more towards the business acumen and making sure that you have the aspects of business administration in general. But then there are analytics based specific courses which you will be covering as a part of this whole curriculum, and like econometrics and with the foundation of mathematics, programming with Python, data warehousing, business intelligence, visualization with Tableau. So these are very specialized analytics courses which teach you a lot of tools and technologies and programming languages to deal with these analytic solutions which we just discussed. So building those analytic solutions, crunching the data, making sure that you have inflow of data on one end, and then you analyzed it and produce some results and dashboards on the other end. This whole process requires you to have these kind of fundamentals being clear. Once you have these fundamentals, you could solve any problem under the sun so far which has been solved. So look at these courses like programming with Python. It's one of the most powerful languages today in terms of data analytics which is used. Data warehousing principles gives you the fundamentals of how the data is being stored and analyzed. The visualization with Tableau will give you information about how it is presented to the rest of the world. It is okay to do the analysis, but how do you present your analysis back to the world is something which these kind of courses will bring out. And then there are various programming related uh, courses like SQL and R, basics of computers and computing, which will take you through the journey of learning and getting hold of all the languages which you would require to build the analytic solutions which the industry is asking for. Even in the research areas which you would opt for after this particular course, or if you wanted to go for an MBA, these teachings and learnings will build the right fundamentals. If you're talking about business analytics, computational business analytics as a field, these courses will bring the right foundation and right ideas in your mind to take them forward. Even if you wanted to pursue these kind of jobs or work with some of these organizations which we saw, or do a research, either ways, all these will become core fundamentals of your studies. And these are some of the references. Before jumping into the case study competition, I just wanted to pause here and take some questions if you have at this point of time. Please feel free to ask or let me know if I can. Yes, go ahead.
I was wondering, earlier in one of the webinars, it was said that we could change our course once if we've taken digital technologies earlier, we can change that course to business analytics after the first year. First year is common for everyone. So is it? I mean, that's it, right? I can change it still.
Yes, you can opt for it. Primarily, the first year is all common for all of you. Then I mean, the first 2 semesters are primarily going to have all the common courses. It's only in the second year that you move to the specialized courses and program courses specifically to the area which you choose.
So, what is the major difference between business analytics and digital technologies? Like, I can find some courses that are more in business analytics, and that I found more interesting courses in business analytics. So, like, any differences you would like to point out, sir?
Digital technologies is not about data analysis. You're not going to have courses which are going to be involved in that course which are related to data analysis. Here you're primarily going to these are primarily very mathematics intensive. You would require a lot of regression and correlations, bringing the right perspective about what you learned in your +2 mathematics. You're going to bring that to table. Whereas in digital technologies, you're not necessarily doing data analysis as such. It's primarily more related to the prime technologies which are being used today. That does not necessarily apply directly to the data, to the mathematics part of it. So that's the major difference. The digital technologies it does not necessarily focus on the data collection and data analysis and applying those techniques, those tools. You don't even require to have a deep understanding of languages like Python and R. So that's more focused on the new technology emerging out of these organizations and the scope of people working on those technologies. So there is definitely an amount of difference. The courses could be the first year courses, as I said, are going to be common, but the specialized courses are going to be different for digital technologies versus business analytics.
Sir, so um, I have not taken maths in +1 and +2. So
Okay.
how
Okay.
do so what do I have to do so that I can, like, it'll be easier for me if I would want to transition from digital technologies to business analytics?
Given that business analytics is very maths intensive, as I said, you would require to have a +2 in 10th, um, uh, because that has been the criteria so far. We may devise some solution later on, but at this point of time, +2 maths is absolutely required.
May I interject? Sorry. Yeah.
Yes, Professor Rama.
Yeah. Gitanjali, is that Gitanjali who asked the question?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Gitanjali, very sorry, but if you haven't done math in +2, you cannot do computational business analytics.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Please
Sir,
feel free to ask. Yes.
Sir, what are merchant partners?
Sorry, what is that?
What are merchant partners, like you mentioned in the slide?
Sure. The merchant partners are the people who actually help you connect directly to the banks, the organizations which are working on your investment banking. And so this is primarily if you as an organization, or if you are a part of an organization and want to invest in some of the banks for the growth of your organization, there are merchant partners who enable you to do that. They are more like intermediaries.
Okay,
Did I answer
you,
the question?
Yeah, yes, thank you.
Yes. Any other questions?
I might be in like repeating this point, but I just want to ask whether is there any possibility that I take some extra courses before joining or during the first year? That it is like no possibility of that either. Like for extra courses, if I have certain certification of math or give some examination and then come into the business analytics course. I mean, I found it really interesting, so I would really want to put some effort, and if I can, if there's any possibility for me to join that course, I would really like to take that chance.
Professor Rama?
Yeah. So Gitanjali, unfortunately, we have discussed this in great detail and internally, and the coursework is such that if you haven't had mathematics in your +2, it's not going to be easy for you to follow the course curriculum. Other universities may be willing to accept you for data analytics, but our curriculum is very, very rigorous, and it's very unlikely that you can do 2 years of mathematics, in a compressed format. So unfortunately, we have to say no to you. But I would not make a final decision until I have heard the presentation by Professor Pradeep Racharla on the digital technologies. So both the courses are very, very interesting, and please hold off on making a final decision until you've heard Professor Pradeep Racharla. He's going to talk soon.
Yes, next week itself.
Next week, actually.
Yeah.
On the digital technologies curriculum. Okay. Yeah. You still have a great opportunity of building a career in a world that's going to be, that's already highly digitized, and there's no industry or a sector that is not touched by, or even function, I would say, that's not touched by the digital revolution. So keep an open mind, listen to Professor Pradeep Racharla next week, and then you can take a final call. Okay?
Okay, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Please feel free to ask questions. Let's make it as interactive as possible.
Sir, how much is our syllabus related with the Cornell one? Is it completely based on it, or?
Yes, it is. It is on the same lines as Cornell. In fact, many of these courses are. I mean, many of the curriculum is also getting reviewed by Cornell as well. So it is definitely based on the Cornell's curriculum. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So let's come to the fun part of it. I just wanted to make it more interactive, and that's why I wanted to have this kind of a competition. And this is a very simple case study which I'm posing to you as a part of the competition. I'm just calling it Ace the Case to prove your business acumen. Let's go ahead and have a look at this. I'm going to share this, but we are going to share this case study in a document format as well, so you would have the access to that, and we'll give you enough time to come out with your solutions. So we are going to send another email with the details of the competition after this session, but I'm going to summarize the particular case what we have here. So we are just trying to look at a visualization format because we are talking about data analytics. So definitely visualization is a very important aspect of analytics. And I'm sure you would have seen this kind of a graph somewhere or the other. So this case is talking about alternatives to a pie chart. I'm sure you would be aware that this is called a pie chart, where you see the percentage breakup of a particular data point, and you see it in various percentages here and there. So this case is talking about a particular scenario where there is a data which has been collected before and after a program, a pilot summer learning program, which has been given to the kids. I'll not go into details very much, because anyways, this case will be shared with you as a competition. So this particular data is showing you the breakup of all the data which has been collected from the students before and after the course, and the distribution is being represented here. Now, there are some drawbacks in showing this data in a pie format. So there are some alternatives which have been suggested here. Either you show the number directly, or you show it in a bar graph format, or a horizontal bar graph, 100% stacked, or a slope graph. So the case will have all the details. And these are the questions I'm asking very specifically, that what is the issue with the pie chart in the context of the given case study? So once you read the case study, you would be able to make out why pie chart is not representing it well. And given that the other type of graphs which have been given as alternatives, which alternative solves the issue most effectively, and why? And why do you want to represent the data through pie charts if it is such a big problem? Then, and when can we use them most effectively? So what we are looking at here is the best answer, the optimum answer which you can come out with. And please go through. It's just a few slides, or even in a document format, it's just a 2-pager, which you should be able to do that in your free time. And it's a good exercise for you to brush up your fundamentals about visualization, data visualization as such, and see which chart or which type of graph appeals you more and provides the information which is required in the best format. Okay, so this is a small case study which I'm going to float as a part of the competition. And this is something which I would expect you to send it to my email ID. It's already shared though, but as a part of the emailer, I'm going to send you this thing, and we will have one runners up and one winner, and the faculty at MUSUM is going to judge it. So I would say don't wait, and start your case analysis ASAP. Thank you very much. Let's
Thank you very much.
Let's open the floor for questions.
Open the floor for questions.
Please feel free to ask. I'm sure there'll be some questions or the other.
There'll be some questions or the other.
Okay. So just another quick update on the session which is happening on Thursday morning. I've just sent the mail on that. We are going to have a particular guest speaker coming and talking to us and answering your questions. You could ask the questions directly to them. There could be a question answer.
May I interrupt? Yeah. Manish, could you mute yourself, please? And could you mute Manish?
Yes, I'll just ask him to do. Yeah, he's muted now. Okay. Yeah, so I was just saying that we are going to have another session coming up on Thursday morning, same time. And that session is primarily going to be an interview with the industry expert. This person is an entrepreneur himself for last 15 years and has been associated with data analytics products across the globe, worked with SAP for a good amount of time for last 25 years. So I think if we see the history of data analytics, it goes back to 25 years primarily. Not that it didn't exist before that, but it has come in the limelight after that. A particular scenario. I mean, there are so many organizations which have started using data analytics very heavily in their day-to-day activities. Something which has been a recent phenomena. So with him being associated with this field for more than 2 decades, I think it is important to bring him on table and ask a few questions related to that. So I would encourage you to come out with the right questions, right doubts which you have related to this course. Clarify yourself, clarify those questions with such experts, because that's the kind of opportunities you are going to get once you enroll for this kind of a course. We are going to have guest speakers coming every now and then as a part of this course and talk to us. So asking them the right questions related to their organizations, how they use a particular theoretical concept which we study in our classes, is something which is very critical, because the application part of a theoretical concept is something which we want to study as much as possible. So we are going to send out more details on the session and the new Zoom link, which we are going to share along for that particular session. So please feel free to attend that as well, because that's going to be more valuable while a third person from the industry comes and sits across the table and talks to us and is open for questions which you and I have for him, because of his experience, because of his exposure to this particular industry. So as you've seen, this course this whole program which we are going to have is going to have a series of such interactions and involvement from the industry, and kind of competitions and quizzes which we are going to float are going to be more related to industry. So I would encourage you to start thinking and start exposing yourself more to the industry. If you're doing a particular course, why am I doing this particular course, is something which you need to answer from an industry perspective, from an application perspective. At the end of it, I'm going to apply it back in the industry as a part of the research, as a part of my job, as a part of my day-to-day activity, as a part of building my own career, or starting up my own organization for that matter. I'm sure many of you are doing these kind of courses, BBA, primarily to start your own business. If I'm going to start my own business, what are those top 10 things I would look at in from the data analytics perspective, which could help me, from the digital technologies perspective, which could help me, from an economics and finance perspective, which could help me. So either ways, I think you should start thinking to look at the outside world where your learnings today are going to be applied, and make it more application based. So that's the reason we are bringing the people from the industry. I'm also looking forward to having that interaction from that gentleman, and it's going to be pretty interesting, because if the person is exposed to an industry and is answering our questions, it gives us more insight into what is there in offering for me in future. So I would encourage all of you to be a part of that session, and be as participative as possible. Ask more questions. Don't feel there is no I mean, I don't see any reason why you should not be asking the question, because people might think it's a silly question, because there is nothing called a silly question. Any question is important for you, which we should be able to answer for you. Okay, so let me one final time, let me again ask you, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Otherwise, you already, yes, Divya, please go ahead.
So, what happens when the algorithm messes up? Like, for example, if a transaction is missed
Yes.
or the transaction goes to a wrong person, then how do you find it in like the millions of transactions happen? So, how do you find that one particular transaction which went wrong?
So there is always a fallback mechanism for these fintech organizations to roll back such transactions if once detected. Like, for example, if a wrong transaction has gone to somebody else's bank account, for example, I should be able to track that using my technology itself. I mean, these days you would have seen the technology is so sophisticated that a transaction gone wrong can be identified, and right alerts are thrown back. First of all, the systems are so robust that the likelihood of such wrong transactions is not a day-to-day activity. If it happens, it happens in one in a million scenario. And even if that happens, there are some rollback algorithms which are applicable on top of those transactions, which can roll back those transactions safely. But that's a good question. It's a good question. Any other questions?
Sir, when is the college going to start?
Professor Rama, you want to answer?
Yes, we are targeting the 1st of September.
Is it online, right?
We don't know yet. We are hoping that we can actually receive you on campus. But as you know, this decision does not lie with us. It lies with the government, both the central government and the state government. So we are actually quite hopeful that if there is no third wave, that we will be able to have face-to-face classes, even if we have some restrictions on the class format. So for example, even if they say that only 50% of the students can be in the class, then we can alternate the classes, right? So the students attend half the classes in a week in a face-to-face format and take the other classes from their dorms online. So, but these are questions that we cannot answer. In fact, the Telangana government had said at the end of June that they would allow face-to-face classes starting the 1st of July. And within 24 hours, they withdrew that relaxation. But since we still have a month and a half to go, or nearly 40 days to go to the 1st of September, we're actually quite hopeful that we will get the permission from the state government. Not just us, but all universities and schools.
Okay, sir.
Okay, any other questions related to the coursework, related to the topic, subject? Yes, Divya.
So, in the course that we're doing, how many like the internships that we do? So,
Yes.
what are the expected like companies which will be there for the internships?
So we, if you ask me, there is no specific formula for what type of companies which will come in. Related to your field, let's say if you are doing it in business analytics, and if you want to do an internship in an analytics based company, one thing is that the organizations will be approached at that particular point of time for the internship programs. And if you have any suggestions, or if you have any specific recommendations for an organization to where you want to pursue your internship, and if that needs to be connected, we would provide that connect. So if you see in Hyderabad or in cities like Bangalore or surrounding areas in India itself, there are so many organizations who are working on data analytics purely, or even if you say digital technologies, there are some e-commerce organizations or many organizations who are welcoming the interns for a limited period to do the internships. So I'm sure you will have multiple options to go to. Of course, there'll be some criteria of selecting those organizations, but there'll be multiple options to go to in the field of computational business analytics or economics and finance, for that matter. So there are multiple companies who will be ready for providing the internships. So we'll be working on that as the time comes.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions?
Sir,
Yes, Gitanjali.
there was once, like on one of a webinar, it was said that we could do a 4th year as well. Like we could, I mean, do something like if you want to choose a subject, or we could even like incubate a company or something on during a 4th year. So, like, could you please elaborate on that?
So right now the discussions are on. We are going to have more clarity on that once the program commences. I think the status is still the same only. We don't have any new information beyond that.
All right, sir.
Okay. Yes, Sundar Raghavan, please go ahead.
Sir,
Yes.
If I'm planning on doing my MBA abroad, what kind of recognition does this course have? The universities abroad, I mean.
This is actually a bachelor's course which makes you very much eligible for an MBA abroad. Absolutely eligible. I mean, from a recognition perspective, this is recognized as a degree course which you are enrolling to. So you will be fine. You will be able to apply to any of the MBA courses abroad, and you should be able to get
Yes,
the
sir.
admissions based on that.
Yes, sir. In any case.
Sir, in one of the seminar before, there has, I mean, an extra year would be they said that an extra year can be added to the 3-year course. So, so how will it be added, or what is it?
So we
Can
are
you please
just
elaborate?
having a discussion around it. There is still not much of clarity on that aspect as of now. As we have had a discussion that we are still exploring that option of adding that additional 4th year. So once we have the clarity, we should be able to give a better update on that.
Okay, sir.
Sundar, you still have a question?
Just to Mani, just to add to what Professor Mayank has said, we are actually waiting for a clarification from the UGC on exactly what is required for a 4th year. So the new educational policy has specifically stated that a 4-year degree is possible, and the 4th year has to have a research component. So that's all the new education policy says as of now. And we are waiting for the UGC to clarify if there are any minimum prerequisites for the 4th year research component. You know, what format that research should take, how many courses on research are necessary. So these are details that we are expecting the UGC to come out with in the next few weeks or in the next couple of months. And once they come out, we will offer a 4th year as an option to all the students. So those who want to graduate after 3 years can graduate after 3 years, but those who want to stay back and get the 4th year do a research project, get the 4th year, will be offered that option.
Sundar, do you have a question? Sundar Raghavan?
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Yes.
Regarding the course recognition for this
Yes.
BBA, as of now, is approved by UGC or still pending?
The course recognition has been definitely approved by UGC. It's already
Okay, sir.
approved. Yes.
Okay, already approved.
Yes.
And as Professor said, is that 4th year addition
Yes.
will be part of this graduation, or is it a separate one, like
going to be-
MBA, or what? How they categorize it?
No, so it's still going to be a BBA degree only. Just that we are going to add the 4th year, and that year, as Professor Rama just mentioned, that has to be research oriented according to the information which we have received from UGC. And we will get more clarity on whether we can go ahead with the 4th year or not. It's something which we should be able to get in a few weeks or maybe a couple of months from now. So we should be able to provide more information by that time.
Okay, sir. One more thing.
Yes.
Regarding the Cornell University based syllabus, is there any preference or any tie-up for the students if they want to study overseas there from Mahendra University?
Professor Rama, you want to answer that?
Thank you for the question. We have already an agreement with Cornell that our students will spend 3 weeks in New York State, in the main campus of Cornell during the summer at the end of the 1st year. That's provided international travel is normalized by next year. So this is already in the agreement with them, and all our students will have the option of going to Cornell for 3 weeks. As far as the study after the BBA, I just want to share with you that Mahendra University is already recognized in many of the leading campuses in the United States, Europe, and Southeast Asia. Just to give you some data points of BTech students who've been admitted this year, that is the 2021 graduating class, they've been admitted to the University of California, Berkeley, Georgia Tech, Carnegie Mellon, Columbia, Stanford, the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, the University of Texas at Austin, National University of Singapore, Nanyang Technological University, École Polytechnique Paris, Isai Supero in Toulouse, France, and Imperial College London. Our previous batch students have been admitted to Cornell. Okay, so it is very rare for a private university in such a short period of time to get this kind of recognition, to place its students in such top schools for postgraduate programs. Okay, so the BBA and the BA students from the School of Management, when they apply to these universities, the admissions departments already know Mahendra University. So the barrier that they have to surmount is going to be a much lower one.
Thank you, sir. I got that means engineering students are already placed in overseas universities.
Top universities. So the same philosophy, the same
philosophy will be applied
on
this BBA also.
Yes.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you. That's all from me. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for your question. Anyone else?
Sir, why aren't there any mainstream BBA courses like BBA in finance, BBA in marketing and all that?
Why aren't there such courses?
Yes, sir.
Because I think the philosophy with which we want to launch these particular school of management is that those courses are something which are very standard and pretty in the today's world. I think we need specialized courses. We probably are done with the finance, and as a part of the curriculum you're already doing a lot of finance and marketing courses also, but the specialization is something which the outside world is focusing more on. And my belief is that if you have a specialization in business analytics specifically, rather than doing just the technology, just a marketing course or a finance course, you are more eligible to work for my organization compared to any other place, or for that matter, the universities who are looking at students to be applying to their particular colleges are looking at specialized courses background. And that's why it is more important or more critical to make the courses more specialized, like digital technologies or computational business analytics or economics and finance for that matter. A combination of economics and finance is pretty rare these days. And if we are presenting that as a particular course scenario, the organizations or the institutes outside are looking for such specialized courses. So it's a more value add which we are giving to the students.
Okay, so we will be covering what is generally like the basics in
Yes.
the finance and marketing
Yes,
and economics.
I showed you the courses, the list of courses. The first part
Yes.
is primarily is a list of such courses only. If you see, you cover up microeconomics, you cover up marketing principles, management principles,
Oh,
financial
yes.
accounting, digital marketing, social media engagement. All these are pretty common courses across all the MBA, all the BBA courses which you see. It is just the specialized courses which make the difference. Like analytics will have this set, while digital technologies will have their own set, and economics and finance will have their own set. But these courses form the fundamentals of your business administration degree. So you will still get all the flavors of marketing and finance and all that, but the specialization will make the difference.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yes, Divya, right?
Sir, I have computer science in 11th and 12th with maths. So how is the Python and the SQL, which will be taught in the business aspect of analytics, be different from that which is taught in the science aspect?
If I bring in the like, for example, in this particular presentation itself, I bring in the industry perspective or business perspective itself, rather than talking about just plain simple syntax. Like, for example, I'll take a simple example. If I'm writing a Python code to add two numbers or multiply two numbers, it's a different aspect altogether. And if I just tell you that these two numbers are quantity and price, sorry, then that will give me the total inventory. In the second problem, I've brought in the business aspect of the scenario. Similarly, if I'm writing a Python code to just show a graph between X and Y, then that's just a plain engineering kind of a solution. But if I give some names to those X's and Y's and call them maybe the time and velocity, for example, I'm able to give you the business aspect of it. So that's the difference. That's the kind of difference. If I'm adding user scenarios or use cases around my teachings, then there is going to be a difference between the way Python is taught here compared to how it is taught in an engineering setup.
Okay, sir.
Sir, how many subjects would we have in a semester? Or what are the main subjects?
The curriculum details as a part of the admission process will be shared with you. But typically you will have 6 courses or 18 credits to be done in each semester. So you can do the math for 3 years, how many courses you would be doing. Yes, go ahead,
Sir,
Geetanjali.
what is the last date for submission of the application form?
Last date of submission. Rakesh, you're there on the call? I'm not too sure. Professor Rama, are you aware what is the last date, or only the admissions team is? Yeah, I would recommend Gitanjali, because these information should be available on the website. You could have a look at the website itself.
All right,
Out of,
sir.
out of my mind, I'm not aware of the last date as such.
Okay, sir.
So when will the admission process like begin for the classes?
Admission process for, sorry?
Like this is the like the confirmation for the seats.
Yes.
It'll happen after the board results.
After the board result you're talking about, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, whatever is the process for the admissions that you have to submit your 12th board percentage marks, that's going to be followed. Yes, that's the admission process. Any other questions?
Sir, what would be like the minimum accepted percentage for the 12th board? I mean, if once the results come.
So these are all admission related questions. So these are all the criteria which we have published on the website already. I recommend you to
80.
look at that. So
And
Yes, Divya. So between digital technology and business analytics,
yes,
which has the which has more future to be as in which has more scope in the future?
I would say that the scope would not be compared between the two courses. The scope would be more individualistic. How much you are able to gain out of each of these courses and take them forward. That's a little bit more, what do you say, important. Either of the courses, because we are launching both the courses together, all three courses together. We see the value in all three of the courses in a similar fashion. Some people look at analytics as their careers or futures. Some people look at technology organizations as their futures. Some people look at, let's say, economics and finance as their research area or the future. So it's difficult to say which one will have more better prospects. And given that the industry is more inclined towards specializations any which ways, I would say that each specialization has its own value. So it's difficult to say which one is better and which one is not. It's up to you to take that forward and apply that in the industry. Okay, so I'll take this opportunity to thank each of you to for attending this session. I want you to get maximum out of these sessions, which are going to be subsequently twice a week, as I mentioned in my email, and going to be very interactive with industry people visiting and you participating in some of the case studies and quizzes and other competitions. Please feel free to come out with more and more questions related to the subject, related to the topics, related to the industry, related to the concepts which you want to which you are not clear about. So that's going to be the success of this whole program, and it's an opportunity for you to clarify these options as quickly as possible.
Sir, Tejasvi has a question on the comments.
Yes. Go ahead. Where is it? Is it in the chats or something?
Yes, sir, it's in the chat.
Okay.
Sir, she's asking what is the level of programming that we are going to be taught during the courses?
The level of programming?
Yes.
As I said, like the programming levels are going to be more focused towards the business aspect. Of course, you need to know the basics and you need to apply them in in the real scenarios. If you're able to do that, then the purpose is solved. We are not looking at real strong programmers here. The course is not focused towards building the IT software programmers. That's not the purpose. The purpose is to have those applications in the data analytics world. And if you're able to articulate that, then the programming skills do not necessarily matter. That's up to you to enhance that further. The focus is still going to be the application of that particular programming language in the real world. That's what is the business scenario all about. It's a good question, but
Thank you, sir.
the rigor is going to be different. It's not going to be more focused on the correctness or accuracy, etc. It's going to be more on the business aspect of the programming skill. Okay, so quickly I will just summarize that we are going to have a case study competition, which I'm going to send across. The case questions have to be answered through I mean, you could send the answers in an email back to me. Please feel free to summarize your the questions which I've asked. So please feel free to elaborate on that and come back with your answers. And we are going to have the faculty do the judgment of the best answer, and then there are going to be the prizes on that. I'm going to send out an email again after this session so that you have clarity on what exactly has to be done. But the case study, the glimpse of the case study I've already shown to you. So you should be able to, it's something which is more related to the data visualization. So you should be able to participate any which ways.
Sir,
Yes, Shreyas.
is there a possibility to form a group so that we can actually interact for the competition?
It's not required at this point of time, but yeah, feel free to form a group. But I don't think, because this is an individual competition, I mean, I would require your ideas to be sent. And if each of you want to send out an idea individually, you could do that. But let's keep it plain and simple. Let's not complicate it too much by forming groups, because these are something very specific, something very straightforward. They are not required. They don't require any group collaboration as such. Yes, Gitanjali, you were saying something.
Sir, so the documents will be sent to our university mail IDs.
Yes, yes. So please keep checking your university mail IDs while we are on this program. At least for next, I would say that keep checking it, because there'll be a lot of communication related to these events which are going to happen. And once in a while, we are going to, as I said, like industry people are going to be there. So those videos and those text will be uploaded related to them. So please keep checking those email IDs as frequently as possible. Okay.
All right, sir.
Thank you very much. Thanks for participating, and wishing you all the best for the competition. And please feel free to please feel free to attend all the future sessions to get more clarity on these on the specializations and techniques and tools and all that. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.